Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests. So I'm going to do a speech on leadership. So this is my pathway requirement. And I want to give an interesting speech about what I think entails a great leader and its qualities. So now becoming a leader is often coveted by those to whom its power and activities and abilities are intoxicating. Yet in its ecstasy lay a danger so ravenous and so terrifying so as to destroy mighty empires and mighty nations. If there are those who want to avert that danger, then this speech is for you. But I must warn you, from the very beginning, I said that I was not fully qualified to be president of Arcadia Toastmasters, nor to speak on leadership. But I know that we have a good friendship going on here, so just take my words as a friend and then take it from there, okay? So I'm going to give you 10 signs or 10 descriptions of a great leader from what I've learned in my experience so far. Now, the first sign, the first description that I think is the most important is that a leader has to understand their team and the person to whom they're serving. So a leader has to understand their team very well. In fact, if a leader doesn't understand their team, the enterprise is lost. You have to know who you're dealing with. You have to know how they think. You have to know their needs, their desires, their likes, their dislikes. You have to know this because the decisions that you render are going to take into account the people that you have around you. If you have the right people in your team, your system will flourish. If you have the wrong people, they won't flourish. So understanding your team is key in becoming a great leader. And also understanding the people to whom you're serving. Many times you have customers, you have people that you're serving, let's say in a nonprofit setting. You have to understand their needs and desires. Let's say a person desires to have turkey, but then you give them ham. They're not going to eat the ham, they want the turkey. So in order to have a successful enterprise with the people whom you're serving, you have to understand their needs and desires as well. So the first step is to understand your team and understand the people to whom you're serving. The second is also very important. You have to have a vision and you have to have a goal. Leaders without a vision are leaders who can't see into the future. They can't see what's at stake in the future and how that might hamper your organization. Vision includes people who understand principles of how things work. They understand history. They can see the patterns of history, and then they can act and look into the future and say, this is what we need to do in order to avert this present danger that is going to be lurking in the future. It's a way to save your organization from imminent danger that might be arising. Next, you need a goal. It's very well and good to have a vision. In fact, visionary leaders are often lauded as people that don't come around too often. But you also need to have a goal. Leaders without a goal are leaders that are having dead organizations. A goal keeps your organization alive. A goal gives you a path in which you're going. You have a destination. You have an aiming point. You know what you want to do and you know where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, then you go nowhere and the organization eventually dies. So the life force for an organization is a goal. And that vision and goal have to come in tandem together in order for you to be a great leader. So that's the second step, is to have a vision and to have a goal. Now, third is you have to have rules in place for the people with whom you have on your team. Now, rules are important in order for your organization to know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. But rules are also important because they create a culture for your organization. For example, let's say you have two children, and I know many of you have been parents. One child might be very disruptive, disobedient. Is it wise to parent a child where you are pretty loose with them, you're not as stringent on them, you let them do whatever they want? Absolutely not. They're going to tear the place apart, and they're going to tear you and themselves apart. You have to have very strict rules with that child in order for that child to be obedient and in order for that child not to cause any problems. Now, conversely, would you have that with a child who's very obedient, who's very nice, who's very kind? Would you have strict rules in play with them? Of course not. You don't need to have those rules. It would be a waste of time to be very strict with a child that doesn't need that strict rule making. So it's very important for a leader to understand that the rules in place are in place for the group that you have in hand. You have to know exactly what rules work for them in order for the organization to work as well. So that's the third step for leadership, is to understand the rules that you have to have for your team. And the fourth is flexibility. Now, flexibility is important because sometimes you get very rigid with the rules. Sometimes you might be a leader and say, okay, I'm going to show you who's boss, and I'm going to tell you this is what we got to do. But a great leader doesn't do that. A great leader has to be flexible given the circumstances that they have. Now, one example, I have to use an historical example because that's how I do it. But one example is Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, Napoleon is known as one of the greatest generals in history. And many people don't know why he was so great. What made Napoleon this excellent general who rivaled Julius Caesar and Hannibal of Carthage? The main reason why he was very successful was because he was able to be flexible when it came to meeting his opponent in battle. In the 1790s, Napoleon departed from Egypt to the European continent to make war against the Italians and the Prussians. He took with him under 40,000 soldiers, and he faced 60,000 Italian and Prussian soldiers. Many people said he had no chance to win. However, he won each and every battle against the Prussians and the Italians. And the reason why was because he diverted his troops to a battle that was winnable, where he outnumbered the troops, the Italian and Prussians, in each battle that he fought. And when he was able to defeat them, he diverted those troops to another battle where they had the better odds in that particular battle. And he did that battle after battle until he was able to win the war against the Italians and the Prussians. It's to say that leaders have to understand that being flexible is key in order to have a winning recipe to make your goals and vision a reality. And a leader who isn't flexible, but is too rigid on the rules, has a chance of losing the battle and therefore losing the war. So being flexible is also very important. 5, you have to communicate clearly with your group. Leaders who are very vague in communicating run the risk of having the club and having the group go awry. If leaders say one thing and then say another thing, then there's going to be mass confusion and there's not going to be a clear initiative on how to make the goal accomplishable. For example, let's say you have a child, and let's say there's a mom and a dad. And let's say you have the dad tell the child, okay, son, you can go ahead and you can eat ice cream. And the son eats ice cream and the mom sees him and says, well, what are you eating ice cream for? Well, dad said I can eat ice cream. And she says, I told you not to eat ice cream. Why would your dad tell you that? And he says, I don't know, ask him. And then the parents fight because there wasn't clear communication on what the rule was for eating ice cream for the child. So it's very important for leadership to be clear with the members on what the rules are in order for there to be good leadership. So that's number 5, is to have clear communication. Number 6 is to lead by example. It's not enough for a leader just to tell you what to do and bark orders all the time. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Leaders know that. So leaders have to lead by example so they can prove to the people that they're leading that they're worthy of being led. They're worthy of being followed. This is where a leader says, I want you to cut this wood, or I want you to do this, and he does it better than you expect him to do it. Then you're going to listen to him, and then you're going to trust him and respect him because he talks the talk and walks the walk. He shows you how it's done. And that when you have that, then the members say, you know what? I think he's worthy of being followed. I'm going to listen to this guy because he knows what he's talking about. He knows how to get the job done. So he's worthy to be respected. And that's very important in order for you to have the group in place so then you don't lose them over time. So leading by example is very important, and that's number 6. Number 7 is you always have to improve your skills. It's not enough for you just to be a leader, and I know this happens a lot of times in many organizations and many facets in life, where you've arrived. You are now the director of marketing, or you're now the president of whatever, and you put your feet up in the desk and say, well, look at there, I've arrived. I'm pretty much the leader, I'm the boss. And then you stop improving and you stop doing what it took to get to that position. Once that happens, the organization eventually dies. Because one thing is certain, Heraclitus is very famous for this saying, that you never step on the same river twice. You always have to know that change is a part of life. You have to understand what the changes are. You have to understand what the new thing is, what the old things are, in order for your organization to survive. Improving your skills means that you are keeping track of those trends and you are trying to make sure that you don't get fallen behind from history. We've seen it from organizations like Sears, JCPenney. They're getting blown out by Amazon and they're not able to keep up with the innovations of the time. However, Walmart is staying put and they're able to compete because they're adaptive to the changes of the market, and they're able to show how they can go ahead and contribute to the market changes as well. So always improving and striving to improve your skills is number 7. And number 8 is learning from mistakes. So one saying that I love is from Samuel Beckett, and he said famously, try again, fell again, fell better. Meaning failure is a part of growth. In fact, there's one thing that I know is there is no way you can grow without failure. You can't escape it. If you're not failing, you're not growing and you're not trying. You have to learn how to fail. You have to learn how to take responsibility and say, you know, that's my fault. Because many times when we fail, we think it's an indictment of ourselves. We think that we're just not up for the job. We weren't meant to do this. But it's part and parcel of being a leader is failing and learning how to fail. Understanding that this is part of the process. Understanding that failure is more like a GPS system. All it's saying is you're just going in the wrong direction. That's it. It's not saying that you can't do the job. You're not up for the task. All it's saying is you did X, you need to do Y. And once you understand that as a leader, you're able to accept failure and learn how to learn to grow from failure. And that's very important if you want to lead, is to learn how to fail as a leader. Number 9, I said it a little bit, but I'll expand on it more, taking responsibility and accountability. Now, this is something that we often see many leaders not do. We see it in our politicians, we see it in people of authority. They run away from responsibility and they run away from accountability. But those two things are very important. Now, what do I mean by responsibility and accountability? Well, accountability just simply says, it's my fault. I did it. But responsibility says, I'm going to fix what happened. I'm going to take action to fix the problem that's present. And those two things are very important because leaders have to be both accountable and responsible in order for the system to be successful. And this is important for leadership because many times whenever anything goes wrong, I don't care what it is, I don't care how minute it is, I don't care how grand it is, the leader is going to be blamed. And rightly so, because they are in charge of making the organization thrive. So they have to take the blame, and therefore they have to be accountable, and they have to be responsible for any problems that arise from the organization. That's number 9. And then number 10, and this is important, this is something that I hold very dear, is that a leader must never desire to tell the members what to do. I think this is important because the goal of a leader is to try to empower and enhance the people around them so that they can become leaders themselves in the future. It is your goal for the people around you, the members, to take the initiative, to say, you know what, I'll take responsibility for that. You know what, I think we should do this. You know what, I should think we should do that. And more or less telling the leader how the ship should run. Because there's no monopoly on power. One person can't hold all the power. The power has to be spread amongst all the members. But the leader is very important to make sure that the ship stays put and it doesn't go wreck off sea somewhere. But we all have to have a collective unit to where we can all contribute to the success of the organization. And that means that the leader has to know that each member has a say on what is right and what is wrong. And that means that the leader must not desire to boss people around and tell them what to do, because it's completely just terrible that a leader would want to do that. In fact, that's not leadership at all. It's an authoritarian who thinks he's a leader. So with that, I give you these 10 signs of what it means to be a great leader. Now, once again, like I said, I know that I'm probably not qualified to give advice on leadership, and I hope that you took this to heart, and I hope I made sense to you all. Thank you.